Joining me now is Maine's independent Senator Angus King, who serves on the Armed Services and Intelligence Committees. He also happens to be just back from the NATO summit in Lithuania. So, Senator, thank you for joining us. I want to ask you to pick up kind of where Peter left off, the idea that NATO leaders are saying they're ready to let Ukraine join the alliance, but not on the timetable that President Zelensky wants. He was very frustrated about this on the front end, as Peter indicated, seemed to be softening his language today. Where do you stand on the eventual admission of Ukraine at some point when this war is over or toned down?
Well, first, I fully understand President Zelensky's frustration. I mean, he's under attack on a daily basis. His people are being killed, and his schools and civilians are being bombed. So I understand where he is. On the other hand, as Peter said at the end of his report, if NATO accepted Ukraine tomorrow, we'd be in a world war. Because under the provisions of the NATO treaty, we'd have to fully come to the defense, which would mean troops. And I don't think that would be is not appropriate at this time. And I think President Zelensky understood that, and I think he basically must have picked up on that in his conversation with President Biden. And this is a decision that has to take some time. And there's a interesting sort of twist to this, to the extent that NATO makes a firm commitment that says, when the war is over, you will become a member of NATO. That could prolong the war, because that encourages Vladimir Putin to say, look, I've got to win this thing or drag it out, because otherwise they're going to come into NATO, and that's my worst nightmare. Putin is already screwed up royally here. NATO is stronger than it's ever been. Sweden is going to come in, we now know, because Turkey dropped their objection. Finland is already in. NATO's larger, stronger, and more united than probably it's been in 50 years due to Vladimir Putin's actions. So I think being more deliberate about the admission of Ukraine to NATO is the exactly proper position.
Yeah, we're showing our viewers a map of the alliance, and the start of this war has basically forced the whole Baltic Sea to become a NATO lake, with Sweden and Finland joining the alliance. Senator, I want to ask you, just this morning, a group of congressional Republicans have called on the Biden administration now to send these ATACMS missiles to Ukraine. This was after France announced yesterday they're sending some of their middle to long-range missiles to Ukraine. Do you think the White House has been kind of a step behind on providing resources to Ukraine, as some of the military experts that we talk to daily have suggested, the idea that we're always it's always Zelensky pushing and us sort of catching up later with the needs that he's bringing to the international community and to the Americans specifically?
Well, I think first you need to understand the extent of the support that we've already provided, both in terms of weapons, money, humanitarian aid. It's really been extraordinary. The ATACMS that's a tough case, because here's the problem. The range of the ATACMS would go well into Russia. And the president has been trying to tread a line between supporting Ukraine and their ability to defend their country and not providing weapons and material that could lead to a significant escalation in the war. That's the line. Now, you can say, okay, maybe they should have done Abrams tanks a couple of months earlier, or whatever the weapons are. But I think the administration has done a pretty good job of trying to tread that line, because the results are that we haven't seen the escalation that we've been worried about, and the conflict is limited, at least in terms of geographic area. And so I'm not one. I understand the administration's reluctance on the ATACMS, because again, they are a long-range, essentially artillery missile hybrid that can reach well into Russia, and I think that's what the president is trying to be careful with, and I think that's an appropriate action. Now, we've given them tanks, we've given them drones, we've given them training. I mean, the material that they have to fight this, what it now amounts to a World War I style trench warfare, I think is very important. In Lithuania, I went to a training center with the folks that are doing work on these Abrams tanks. I think they could be a game changer in Ukraine, as well as additional air defense.
Senator, while I have you, I want to put your Intel Committee hat on here for a second and ask you about your reaction to these reports of Chinese hackers accessing U.S. government email accounts. This is in a Microsoft breach that was just announced today. Feels like every couple weeks we're talking about another breach of this nature.
Well, one of the most significant threats we face right now is cyber. I mean, there's just no question about it. From malign actors, state actors, as appears to be the case in this matter because it's the Communist Party of China, or garden variety criminals who are doing ransomware attacks on our hospitals or on our state government. So this is a significant vulnerability. The Chinese better be careful because not only do we have defensive capability, we have the ability to compromise some of their systems too, and they should know that. Deterrence is the cornerstone of our foreign policy and our strategic defense, and deterrence, in my view, has to also operate in the cyber realm. We cannot allow attacks to go unanswered, and unfortunately that's been the case over the last decade or so. I think we need to be more aggressive in responding to attacks like this. The Chinese have to understand if indeed they are behind this attack, and if indeed it's a government-sponsored attack through the PLA, they're going to have to pay a price, in my view. That's the only way this is going to end.
Senator, I don't even have time to ask you this last question, but I can't let you go without pointing out that apparently on your way back, your delegation had to refuel in Maine, and I understand you made sure there was lobster waiting for all of your fellow senators on the layover. I need to travel with you more often. That's much nicer than I eat when I'm on the road.
The lobster rolls were a big hit. If I could have run for majority leader last night among the delegation, I think I would have been elected. They love those lobster rolls on a bipartisan basis.
I think that would have done it. Senator Angus King, the independent of Maine, thank you for your time today, Senator.
Thank you, Garrett.